Hi, it's Mr. Benson here with a short video on directed numbers. This is a key skill in algebra and equations, and it's something that it's not unusual that people find a little bit difficult. So we're just going to go through some of the ideas again. This shouldn't be much more than 10 minutes. Okay, so when we're talking about directed numbers, we're talking about positive and negative numbers, and most people are pretty happy with what we mean by that. So we need to think of a number line. So we have our 0, we're thinking about 0 in the middle here. Now anything above 0 is what we call a positive number, anything less than 0 is what we call a negative number. So if we had plus 3, then on our number line that's going to be 1, 2, 3 above 0, so it's going to be here, so this would be plus 3. Now the numbers that we normally deal with are positive numbers, so if you ever see something written like this, like 7, then we know that it is actually plus 7, and it would be there on our number line. So whenever something doesn't have a number, a sign in front of it, sorry, it's a positive number. Going over to negative numbers, so if we have minus 3, well, again, it's 1, 2, 3 down from the 0 on our number line. So whenever we're moving more negative, we go to the left. So that's when we're subtracting effectively, and adding, we're going to the right. So adding and subtracting. So with positive numbers, this is easy and most people are completely fine with this. So say 2 plus 1, well, we start off at 2 on our number line. Now if we're adding 1, we're going to move up 1 space on a number line, and we're going to get to 3. So our answer would be 3 here. 2 plus 1 equals 3. Now this slowly becomes a little bit more complicated. So we're doing 2 minus 5, well 2 is here. Now minus 5 means that we're going to move 5 spaces to the left. Now we're actually going to go below 0 at this point. So minus 2 would take us to 0, but minus 5 is going to take us all the way down to negative 3 as our answer. And then if we've got more than one negative number in our expression, all you've got to think about is where we start. So with this one, minus 2, we're starting here at minus 2. Then what we're doing is we're subtracting 3, so we're going to go down 3 to the left, and we're going to get to minus 5 as our answer there. Now if you've got multiple signs, you just need to think about what they're saying. Now we start off here with 2 plus minus 3. Now the first thing to think about is that the 2 is plus 2. So we are starting off at this point here, which is plus 2. Now we're being told to add minus 3. Now minus 3 means that we're going to go down in that direction. Now if we're adding minus 3, effectively it's the same as subtracting 3. So we're going to go down 3, and we'll end up in this case at minus 1 equals minus 1. So you can start to see here that if we ever have two signs together and they're different, then we're going to actually do a negative in this case. So when we're adding a negative, the result we get, or what we do in effect, was minus 3, so it's a negative. Here's another one like that, but it's slightly different again. So 1 minus minus 5. Now remember, we're starting off at plus 1. Now minus minus 5, you kind of have to think about what that means. Now if we were going minus 5, that would be easy. We'd just go down 5 to the left. But we're being told that we're actually subtracting minus 5. Now that means we're actually going to do the opposite in this case. So we're going to end up adding 5. So we're going to go up 5, and we're going to get to plus 6 as our answer, equals plus 6. So what we can see here is that when we've got two signs that are the same, we end up with a positive result. And one way that you might like to think about this is, we know that minus 5 would be going down to the left, But when we are subtracting that, effectively we're reversing that, that direction. So we're already going down to the left, but then we subtract, which means we're now reversing the direction, so it would now go up to the right. If you look at the example up here, we had -3, which was going down to the left, but we were adding that, so that direction stays the same. Now, going on to multiplication. Multiplication of the numbers is just your times table. So if we've got 2 times 5, then that's just 10. Then we've got 2 times -3. Well, if you think back to your number line, if we had -3 as our operation, then you'd go down by 3 to the left. Now, if you were doing that twice, you would go down by 6. And so it makes sense that 2 times -3 is -6. -7 times 2, again the same thing. -7 would be 7 places to the left. If we were doing that twice, it would be -14, or 14 places to the left. Now, one thing you might have noticed here, if you think about the signs, remember this has got a plus in front of it, and this has got a plus in front of it. And like I was saying in the previous slides, when these signs are different, we're always ending up with a negative answer. Now let's have a look at this one here. Well, -2 is 2 places to the left, and if we were doing that 4 times, we would have a total of -8 down to the left, but we have another minus sign here. Now we could write this in a lot of different ways. So one way we could do this, if we wanted to write it differently, is say that it's the same as -2 times 4. Now that is -8, and you could see from some of our previous examples that -8 is 8 steps to the left, but the negative sign in front of it is reversing this sign, so we would in fact be going 8 steps to the right. So you can start to see a pattern here. When we've got a positive multiplied by a negative, we're getting a negative. A negative by a positive is a negative. 2 positives together give us a positive answer. 2 negatives together give us a positive answer. Now division is basically the same operation as multiplication, so the rules are the same. So 6 divided by 2, that's pretty easy, that's 3. 8 divided by -2, well, I know that there's going to be 4 in here somewhere, because 8 divided by 2 is 4. What about the minus sign? Well, remember this is a plus, this is a minus. From our previous example, we were pretty sure that if something had a positive sign and a negative sign, we're going to end up with a minus, with a negative answer. Now, moving on to the last one, 12 divided by 4 is 3, but we've got minus signs on the top and the bottom. Now, there's a number of ways you can think about this, but as we saw in the previous example, negatives multiplied by negatives would equal a positive. Division and multiplication are essentially the same operation, so you will end up with a positive answer. One other way you can think about this one is we could write it in a slightly different way. So -12 over -4. Now, these are both -1 times a number. So -12 is -1 times 12. -4 is -1 times 4. Now, if we've got the same number in our numerator and in our denominator, well, that -1 divided by itself is just going to equal 1. They will cancel. So all we're left with is 12 over 4, which equals 3. Solving for x. Now, one thing that you'll come across in algebra, and it often confuses people a little bit, is when you get to a point in an equation where you have something like this. We're trying to solve to get x by itself, and we've got -x equals 5. Now, if we had something slightly different, so if it was, say, -2x equals something, then it's often more obvious what to do, because you know that there's a number in front of the x, and you can then do the opposite operation to get rid of it. So what's worth thinking about here is that we can write it as -1x equals 5. And so then we can go, well, okay, to get x by itself, currently it's being multiplied by -1. I will divide both sides by -1 and see what happens. Now, I know that these will cancel, so on the left hand side of my equation I will have x left. Now 5 divided by 1, and remember that it is plus 5 divided by 1, 5 divided by 1 is 5, but a positive number divided by a negative number is going to give me a negative number. Now there is a shortcut to this, however you do need to be careful with it, because like all shortcuts, there is the chance that you're going to get it wrong. If you've got a negative value on one side of your equation like this, then the shortcut is just to change it to a positive value. Badly drawn plus there. And I've changed the sign on this side of the equation, so I've changed this from a negative to a positive. I just need to change the signs on the other side of the equation from whatever they are to the opposite sign. So this started off as plus 5, I change it to the opposite sign and we get -5. Now this is probably quicker if you can start to think along those lines, and it does actually work for anything. So if we have a more complicated equation, so I don't know, -y equals 2x plus 15, actually I'll make it -2x plus 15 just to make it a little bit more interesting. We could apply this technique that I first described to this equation, or we could just do the shortcut, which is where if I change the sign on the left hand side, so my -y becomes +y, I just change the signs on everything on the right hand side. So my -2x becomes +2x, my positive 15 becomes -15. And a quick summary of multiplication. All you've got to remember that if your factors have the same sign, you'll always get a positive answer. So a positive times a positive gives you a positive, a negative times a negative gives you a positive. So the same sign gives you a positive answer. A positive times a negative gives you a negative, and a negative times a positive gives you a negative. So if they are different signs, you will always get a negative answer. And so I can make up any kind of question here and think about what my answer is going to be. So -3 times -17, well 3 times 17, okay, that's 51. Negative times a negative is going to be a positive. The other thing to remember is you can do most of this on your calculator. Some of the algebraic questions you do need to think a little bit about more on paper, but if you struggle a bit with directed numbers, feel free to use your calculator. Okay, I hope that helps. Email me if you have any questions, or ask me about it in class. Thank you.